Alright, my needle drops. Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and damn, I have gotten countless, dozens and dozens of requests for this new LP. Flying Lotus's Cosmogramma. Flying Lotus is a music producer from California whose knack for music sampling and sound production, sound manipulation, basically smashes any preconceived notions of what hip-hop is or what hip-hop influenced music is. We all know Girl Talk, and Girl Talk makes these mishmashes of radio pop tunes. Well, if Flying Lotus, mishmashes stuff, it's kind of like a tapestry of the strange, the eerie, misfit samples that other DJs just won't touch or just don't know where they are, can't find them,
have no clue they exist.
Flying Lotus's 2008 LP, Los Angeles, caused a fiercely positive wave of reviews to just hit him, and I have a feeling this new LP is going to do the same, with maybe even more positive reviews, simply because he's opening himself up to a wider listening audience. On Cosmogramma, you're not really going to find a traditional song. That's not really what this thing is about. On here, you're going to pretty much find ideas, concepts, motifs. Some feel fleshed out, and some really don't. And Cosmogramma doesn't just throw different songs at you, it's constantly throwing different sounds at you. This thing just has a galaxy, a galaxy's worth of instrumentation, a ton of harp, which isn't surprising because Alice Coltrane is actually Flying Lotus's great aunt. Also, you have special guest Rebecca Raff playing a lot of harp on this LP. Strings, horns, scat vocals, break beats, and those are only the instruments that you can actually identify. But I've written down a few things that I actually think are on this album, but I cannot confirm. Screaming, dentist, drill, space laser, water, ping pong balls, train. There are quite a few significant guest stars on this album too, you could say. This bro named Tom York from this band named Radiohead is on the 7th track, and The World Laughs With You. You also have Laura Darlington, who's in the electronic music duo The Long Lost, who also was on Flying Lotus's last LP too, Los Angeles. And of course, Flying Lotus's cousin Robbie Coltrane plays some saxophone on here too. Which just speaks to how strong the jazz element is on this album. Though jazz is most definitely not the only thing that is represented throughout Cosmogramma, it's way more prevalent than it was on Los Angeles, between all the jazz sampling, all the jazz soloing, just how boundaryless some of the music feels, and the track title Artistry has to be some kind of Sun Ra reference. But I guess if you could boil this album down to one thing, it would be variety. In terms of style, in terms of sound, there's just a lot that hits you between the beginning and the end of this record. But whether or not this LP is good, I think that really depends on what you want and what you're looking for. If you're looking for a series of very consistent, very well-developed sounds, you may not find that here. Instead of making sure one nail is square into the hole, Flying Lotus is just a little all over the map with this LP. And if you're not into the art of sampling or music collage, I can see a lot of these tracks kind of flying by as if they're just filler. But that's just sort of the exploratory nature of this LP. Instead of giving you one thing, and maybe that one thing is done incredibly well, it gives you a little bit of dubstep, it gives you a little bit of hip-hop, a little bit of club music, a little bit of techno sounds, a little bit of jazz, a little bit of cuts from 100 other different things. But in comparison to the album LA, Cosmogramma is a lot cleaner, a lot less vinyl crackle. It's more colorful, I would say it's more accessible, less primal, less cohesive, a little more upbeat. I'm kind of torn between LA and Cosmogramma. Yeah, you don't necessarily need to pick one or the other. You can like both. And I do like both, for different reasons. Cosmogramma is a really diverse musical trip, but still, I don't think it even comes close to touching how bleak and moody LA is. I basically see the difference between these two albums as, let's say you're a huge fan of Japanese food and you want the most hardcore, authentic, Japanese, best of the best food bam, it is just pure concentrated best Japanese food you ever had. That's LA. I see Cosmogramma as more of a buffet. Sure, there's Japanese food at the buffet, and it's not the best of the best, but still, when you go to the buffet, you can get the Japanese food on your plate, you can get the falafel, the agadashi tofu, and you can also get a hamburger all on one plate. There's no other place you're going to get all that on your plate. Though it's not the cream of the crop, though it's not the most finely tuned of all these different types of foods, it's pretty much the only place you're going to get all this diversity. But I don't want to rain on anybody's parade because of all the press leading up to this LP, because of Flying Lotus's affiliation with the Gonja Sufi album, because Tom York is on this LP. There are going to be a lot of first-time listeners when it comes to Flying Lotus here. And they're probably going to love this thing. This thing has a ton of different sounds on it. It's really going to hold attention, even people who have short attention spans, I think. And overall, it's a really fun album. And am I enjoying it? Hell yeah, I am, man. I just think it would have been a little more interesting if it were a little less boundary-less, and maybe Flying Lotus picked several of the sounds he's experimenting with on this album, especially the jazz. I would have loved to have heard him just, do an entire jazz exploration, and kind of stick to that from beginning to end, because I think it would have kind of turned out a lot of interesting sounds with one concept, as opposed to just kind of jumping, here you go, here you go, here you go, there's a spot, there's a spot, there's a spot. I'm feeling a strong 7 to a light 8 on this LP. I don't see any reason why it won't turn up in my favorites of the end of the year, but still, yeah. Decent album, and most definitely need to check this thing out. I mean, yeah, I don't expect everyone to love this album. I'm not even a fan of just a handful of tracks on this thing, but I think this is where some music is most definitely headed, and just as kind of a preliminary thing, just kind of seeing what's going on in the future, just kind of seeing a different direction, this is a must listen. That's all I'm saying. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for being awesome. Flying Lotus, Cosmogramma, forever.